Welcome on back, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Shagravis, you're getting joined here by Veteran and ISO. Let's get into it with our final series of the night. Yet again, large stakes, large teams, and hopefully heavy hearts will not be there as we go into AGT versus CLG. Two teams, 6 letters, 1 winner. Let's talk about it. Veteran, what do you got?
All right, well, first off, shout outs to the Geo Kingdom in bot lane. All right, we'll see what happens there. I'm a big fan, but for me, I actually feel like, judging by how these guys played their previous sets, I'm actually quite confident in CLG to have a good matchup here. Partly because of how bot lane's playing out. I feel like a lot of the things that we see coming out of AOE Ginger Turmeric in the bot lane, these Scalers, the Senna, the Seraphine, even when they go Lucian Nami, is very vulnerable to the heavy utility-based bot lanes that CLG have been doing to make up for the fact that they run primarily carries and topside with very, very low amounts of crowd control. And this bot lane has been so impactful in team fights running that, and it makes them an immense threat in lane. We've seen them do straight-up 2v2 kills against lane bully bot lanes. Imagine putting them against Scalers, right? So I actually think a lot of this will come down to those bot lanes, all right? Again, shout-outs to Geo Kingdom, but yeah, I think ultimately this is going to be in favor of CLG, particularly for how they like to run their compositions.
ISO, are you part of the Geo Kingdom or do you hold a different opinion?
I think if CLG is going to win, they kind of have to win in the first 15 minutes or so, have a large lead because of the way that Ginger Turmeric likes to draft. They are very good at reaching teamfight phase and just sort of beating you with their better mid to late game champs.
True.
I think bot lane will be a very big point of contention for the games, but I also think that in a lot of these games, it comes down to if Draco is on a pick he feels comfortable on. He's very much known for his Camille, his Fiora. He's been playing a bit of Gwen. I think if he gets on one of those 3 champs, he will be pretty stable in the top side. But I think if he goes for more of the tank style, it's not going to be ideal for CLG. But I agree with Veteran that CLG's side is very much for playing, like Trevor loves to play very much playmaking supports, and that is something that can get you early leads versus these scaling bot laners that Ginger Turmeric likes to play.
Yeah, I think also particularly on the AD pool as well, like when you see the Ashe, when you see the Zyres, when you see these kinds of champs, even if they do get outscaled later, they are still useful in some way, shape or form. But I do agree that there is somewhat of a time limit there. The differentiating factor though could also be the fact that Captain Shrimps, he has a history of playing these heavy roaming, heavy global champions and is very, very strong in them. Even when he's not on them, he'll play stuff like Lux, which are really effective in half-roam scenarios, right? And these could help him impact in a way that Town doesn't really look to do in early phases. Mid lane was basically thrown at Town in their last series. Whereas this time around, Captain Shrimps could be very proactive against what is typically an aggressive bot lane from CLG, and in that regard, maybe CLG just can't find any of these openings at all, with Captain Shrimps breathing down their neck.
Yeah, because as of right now, I believe Rebel Foxy mentioned how he's a big fan of how Captain Shrimp's playstyle goes. Whether he is losing or he is winning, he's always finds a way to make his impact known. Right, because I think there are a couple of other players too who do the exact same on both sides. On the side of CLG, we can talk about the massive factors on that are present in a lot of soul lanes. Draco too, if he manages to get an early lead and gets the champions that he want, he's popping off with the Gwen recently too. And now with the addition of Rosethorn, I think that also puts up a massive factor on how he managed to go up against the AGT side. Because I know on the side of AGT, we look a lot of Keel. Iso, you're a big fan of Keel. You're a friend of Keel. And Keel and Rosethorn have faced up before in Academy as well. And I remember Rosethorn always finding the better of that matchup as well. But do you think going into today, things turn back around?
I think it is a really good meta for Keel right now. He is one of the best at utilizing like jungle diff, gold reliant junglers like Karthus, Lilia, Udyr. He's a king of pathing. He will almost always make it so that he will have a lead on the enemy jungler. But Rosethorn is also quite good. I am personally biased to Keel because as I am a friend, a fan, I was also a roommate. so I have to permanently root for my boy Keel.
Well, I mean, Ravish, I need to remind you, I have no friends in North America. Pure unbiased analysis here, all right? I'll give you the pure unbiased 4-on-1 here, all right? I really am looking forward to this jungle matchup because both of these guys are playing farming jungle styles, which I believe to be meta right now. I think bot lane could end up impacting this because if you end up with scaling bot lane against utility bot lane, I feel like when you see these Ashes, you see these Zyres, this means that there may be more jungle control on the side of Rosefawn, in which case Keel may have to do some creative pathing here. But that's the key thing. I expect some creativity to be forced in by the pressures that the lane situation generates here, and by the fact that both junglers are playing for economy. I'm very excited to see that. Both these junglers have prioritized Udyr, for example, who's just like God's gift to jungle right now. I think they both have the right idea about how to play it. Very excited to see the game of chess that occurs in these two, potentially 3 games.
Right. Because as we've seen so far, right, jungle could be so pivotal, but I think there is definitely one role as well that can heavily impact how much these jungles are able to scale. In my opinion, that'd be the top lane. And again, Aiza, of course, I know we would like to believe that top lane is king, but with what is present so far, that being Draco versus Moose Hater, Moose Hater has unfortunately had some less than stellar performances. And Draco, if you give him one of his 4 to 5 champs that he's been shown to carry on, then he becomes such a factor that he is a undeniable truth to taking over the game. We saw that last week too on his Gwen. Does Moose Hater actually satiate Draco's lust on trying to win? Can he make sure that he stays tamed in topside, Aiza?
I do believe we've seen this matchup before. And the last time it happened, Draco did not get his signature picks, and it went in Moose Hater's favor.
Okay.
Yeah?
So you saying that Draco, as long as he's not on like his Fiora, right? His Camille's, his Gwen's, his Jax's, so on and so forth, things will be fine. Everyone will be okay. But I think veteran, I think there's more to this personally. I think Moose Hater is I think I'm gonna need to see a lot more out of him today, but that's personally my opinion.
I mean, I think we'll see a lot from Moose Hater. I think Draco's gotten a lot of hype coming in, but ultimately we do know the champions that he's good on, and that is definitely a way that they could try to attack him. I think, in particular, for AOE Ginger Turmerics, maybe we don't even see them care about the priority on bot side, and you just see Captain Shrimps lean heavy towards top side and be like, Draco, if maybe the hype is all real about you, but I'm not going to let you get to that point. I'm not going to let you carry the late game damage or anything like this. All right, you're going to be stuck with utility and no carries, and I'm going to make sure of that. Maybe that's what they try to do here. So it might not just be as simple as Moose Hater versus Draco. I do actually somewhat favor Moose in the specific one-on-one. But I do think ultimately the way that CLG plays as a whole, that thinking about this as a Draco-oriented team maybe gives either too much credit to Draco or not enough credit to CLG Faith as a unit. Because as a unit, I think they are incredibly strong, and I think that's how they'll win.
I do agree. Because, although we talked about Rosefawn already too, I think Aaron and Trevor as well do have a lot to offer. We mentioned Trevor, especially at the beginning too, how much of an impactful support he can be. I do think though that if Aaron is left alone for too long in the bot lane, that could definitely be a bit of a detriment to CLG, but we'll do see how they manage to play things out. For now though, it is time for predictions, gentlemen. It's time to see what you hold in your heart and on the screens in front of us. Aizo. It's we knew what the Cashes had to pick. We knew what's there. It seems to be a bit more CLG's favored, but I think it's natural after the last few performances. But of course, with Keel being your best friend and previous roommate, I should see a CLG there, right?
You mean Ginger Turmeric, of course.
Yeah. Should see there.
2-0 for Ginger Turmeric for me. It's not as contested, or it is more contested for this time. Among the casters, but for me, I think it's probably going to be a clear, quick 2-0 for Ginger Turmeric.
Okay. All right. Veteran, what do you got to show?
Look, I'm a logical and rational person, Ravishing Ravishers, I'm sure you know. But today, I am also a man of faith, and I'm predicting CLG to take this series in 3 games, 2-1.
Understandable, you know what? And I like that because although I'm not a man of rationality, what I am is a man who enjoys jerseys. So CLG, your new jersey is supremely fire. If you got
Bribery.
it, hit up my DMs. Let's get it. That's all I gotta say about that. All right, it's 2-1, baby. And of course, you know it's going to be some of my favorites to take you through this final series. CLG backed against the wall yet again. We do, of course, got Dolly ready to go. Let's see it.
All right, okay, I'm not going to acknowledge the change from his favorites to some of his favorites. I'm just going to only imagine that I heard favorites. And yes, now we are to Dolly? How do you get that one?
My first name is Dean, so maybe that's where it came from.
Oh, I guess that
Dean
works.
And Jolly. I guess he's getting a little more creative in that regard.
He is.
He's not getting more creative with his simping for jerseys. That just continues to be one direction. It's just give me jersey, I'll wear it, and I'll simp for you on broadcast. I guess is the play here.
Yep. That is no. That is 100% always the play. With you don't know Ravish, if you don't know, you can buy your way into his heart, and it's with merch. Okay, it's as easy as that. He will support you to the ends of the earth if you end up sending him something. And you know what? I can do the same thing. We are of course going to take a quick break though. Somebody's stuck in traffic. I'm not going to call out whoever it is, but hopefully they will get to their computers very soon, so don't go anywhere. We're going to take a very quick break just to give them some time to get set up, and we will be heading straight into the draft for game number 1 here between AOE Ginger Turmeric and CLG Faith. Okay. It's not a Proving Grounds broadcast unless there's some sort of issue with some player on one end or another, but it's been resolved. There have been no handicaps. Nothing has been applied. Trevor was running to his computer. He made it in time. And luckily, they were able to actually show up before the cutoff because we have a few, restrictions. Basically, if you are not ready when it is scheduled to go in, last second they made it in. So we've got a minute or two to talk here, Rebel Fox, before we get into the draft. But this is another one where I love when we have second series of the day where you and I have different predictions. And I think we're pretty vehement on our predictions on this one today.
Yeah, it's back and forth. I think this series has the possibility of going in a million different directions. I could see Ginger Turmeric running away with it. I could see CLG running away with it. I could see a very close series between the two teams. I think there's a lot to speak of, and that's why we're so kind of back and forth between everybody on desk, everybody in the analyst position, all of the casters. I think everybody's back and forth as to who's going to win this series for very, very good reason. I do want to make mention really quick before we kick off on anything super serious about this series, is that currently over on Path to LCS, they're playing the qualifier match specifically for top 10. So Team Pending is playing up against Tempest. If Tempest wins, they're in top 10, they're in Proving Grounds. And if they lose, the team that just lost DK will actually make it through to Proving Grounds. So that is the last qualification, and we will have all 10 teams locked in after that series over on Path to LCS at the moment.
Yeah, which means as of right now, CLG Faith is very, very happy with the way things have been going because they are officially locked in here. So while it was potentially a really big match, the setup for this one, because DK ended up going down earlier, it gives them a little bit of wiggle room. And of course, Ginger Turmeric is also already locked in. So these are two teams now that are really just fighting to see who they go into in the follow-up. Either, I think, Maryville or 100 Thieves. No matter what, it's going to be a very tough matchup. But this is the one that we are watching today as we get into the first draft. AOE Ginger Turmeric is on the blue side to start things out. CLG Faith on the red side. And Rebel Fox, just so people, in case they didn't see the predictions, I ended up going with CLG Faith on this one. Ginger Turmeric is the decision that you made, and it seems like the desk was pretty split on that as well. Yeah, there we go. Take a look.
You can see back and forth just a little bit. And again, there's a lot of variance to how this series actually can end up going about. So there's that to talk about. We'll get into a number of reasons why. But we do know AGT, they're rocking here today. We weren't sure what was going to happen with their top lane because we didn't actually get notice until just seconds ago that it was Moose Hater that's going to be starting today. These two teams have already played, and it was CLG that got kind of crushed. But I think CLG, in the same way that DK had played their team previously and then didn't learn anything, I'm hoping CLG did the opposite and that they learned a little bit about what happened because their drafts were criticized, I think, pretty heavily during the course of that one about AGT. And so hopefully CLG is able to fix that up quite a bit. And nothing out of the ordinary so far here. Like Captain Shrimps is getting his Rumble removed. He is the Rumble player in the mid lane. He's the one that everyone's famous for. And then you're expecting Camille Fiora away from Draco. That's consistent. I think we have a stat that says he's had like 50% of the bans levied towards CLG has been towards Draco specifically, which is insane.
Yep, definitely up there in terms of all of Proving Grounds. If I'm not mistaken, number 1, number 2 probably that's been banned against, and there's a reason for it. And you mentioned the Camille. The one that I've been focused on is the Gwen, though, and that has been, first pick. We saw them last week, of course, going into the different AOE teams, randoms, absolutely destroying them, and this was into counter picks as well. So not only is it safe to make sure that Draco doesn't get what he wants right off the bat, but by doing this, that means that it's going to have to be some other first pick that CLG has to lock in, and they do at least have an opportunity for some counter pick ability because they're starting on the red side here. Karthus is going to be the following ban that CLG Faith locks in.
Need to remove that from Kiel. I know our desk talked a little while ago, but I know they were filling us in with some stuff. And some of the things we're worried about are like number 1, Kiel being on like a hyper farming type champion, especially AP hyper farming type champions are right in the wheelhouse of Kiel being able to accomplish quite a bit. Notably so far, Udyr still on the board, and this was a big difference maker in the series the first time that they played. You do know Rosethorn plays it quite well, but it's blue side AGT, and I'm certain that will go to Kiel if they let it through right here.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they lock in. And of course, the Camille is still left up and open. For the most part, it has been the Fiora Camille ban. That has been the standard here. The Poppy's going to be locked away. We'll have to see. It's grayed out. Okay, there it is. The Udyr. You called it there, Rebel Fox. It's a solid lock in here. And probably what CLG Faith has to have expected, right? Without banning that in the first round.
Yeah, especially with like the Poppy ban coming through, like they don't want to give Poppy over because Poppy's obviously a strong champion, but into the Poppy is a good Udyr matchup. So you'd think that Rosethorn would actually be willing to take that one-on-one specifically. So banning the Poppy feels like maybe they have a game plan for this. Maybe they're prepared for it. This is something that Kiel has played constantly in both amateur, academy, everything ever since he's been in his inception. And he's a very good Udyr player, especially the modern variant of Udyr that he's been able to power farm with. This is where Kiel really starts to shine. As CLG comes in. Last time they played, they had Sejuani twice in a row for Draco. This is a matchup we're looking at because Moose Eater stepped in for the first time against CLG and absolutely slapped Draco in the laning phase, which is terrifying to think of. This time getting the Gnar very early on, a little bit more range to work with, little more skill expression, I'd say, for Draco potentially to take into that matchup.
Yeah, and not the Camille lock-in. Which is another one for Moose Hater that can work quite well, but it's going to be more difficult with that Gnar lock-in. So focusing toward the bottom of the map, Deep Learn and Duo King, and of course it's going to be that hyper carry Jinx. Not just that, we've also got in the lock-in for the Gangplank, which we have seen quite a bit of coming out of AOE GTC previously.
Yeah, it could be a Moose Hater pick, but also it's a Captain Shrimps pick. If you didn't know, he likes to take it into certain champions. And Silas could be one. It's a melee champion in the mid lane. He'd be fine to brawl against it. Not a lot of space for him to be able to dodge out on some of the barrels. So if he likes the matchup, he fancies the matchup, I wouldn't put it past Captain Shrimps to grab this one up and put it in the mid lane, just as a way to manage. Now, of course, that's assuming that's the case. We know that Gangplank and Gnar is a perfectly fine matchup to play for Moose Hater if he wants it. And you can see Aphelios round out CLG's play. Something we're focusing on, and I know our desk talked about, is like, Draco is going to receive a bunch of looks because Draco's been performing very well, but this is a CLG roster that needs to play well together today to beat AGT, right? It doesn't matter how the individual performances go. We have a firm belief that it's the team play that can make the real difference here for CLG when they're trying to overcome a team as talented across the board as AGT is. We talk about their players like Shrimps, Keel, Duo King in the bottom lane, Deep Learn, all of them very miraculously talented players, but sometimes lacking a little bit of that team play that CLG could bring to the table to give themselves an X factor.
Yeah, and they've got the Aphelios locked in too, so even if they fall behind, they have that scaling opportunity here for themselves. That and the Silas, of course, AOE Ginger Turmeric is looking at running the same kind of style, right? You still have the opportunity for early aggression, but you have really solid scaling coming through. I also talked about how much I like these AOE ultimates, and that means that Silas is going to potentially, when it gets to later stages of the game, right, have the opportunity to be able to have that cannon barrage, be able to have the super mega death rocket, but not until the game gets towards that team fight stage when he's actually near these other opponents. And you know what? They're not necessarily ones that as Silas you want to get close enough to.
Interesting. I do wonder if we wait for support versus support matchup for our final picks here, which is really cool because there's not a lot of games where you'd oftentimes see that. Most of the time the support pick gets a little bit downplayed, and sometimes you even pick blanket champions that shouldn't be being grabbed. But this is Trevor and Duo King, two of our more talented, more hands-oriented, and more active type of bot laners that want to do different things. Now, Duo King likes to be higher econ, he likes to do more damage, he likes to play the Senna, he likes to play mages, likes to play things like that. Whereas on the other side, Trevor likes playmakers in general, things like Thresh or the bread and butter. And we get a Velvet for Rosethorn as a response to the Udyr.
Yeah, a lot of survivability here on the side of CLG Faith, but they have a lot of opportunity for damage, right? It is scaling, though. That's what we're looking at for the most part over on the side of CLG Faith, so it certainly wouldn't help for them to have a little bit of... Ooh, yes, I love the Zac lock-in right here. All right, okay. All right. Is that a Zac top?
It could be Zac top, Gangplank mid. I think that's probably the most logical. I do wonder if you end up flexing the Udyr as well, just for the fun of it, because I was hoping that they would drop it, and it ends up being exactly what we thought it would end up being. I remember our desk also talking a little bit about how Keel should drop Ego and pick Rammus if there's a Bel'Veth, and I was like, there's no way they actually flex Udyr and put Rammus into this. No, that's not going to be the case. Instead, they grabbed the Zac, which is an interesting grab up for Moose Hater. It's not the first time we've seen a champion in the tournament, but it's been very seldom picked across most other things. And surprisingly, a Thresh, too, kind of coming out of the woodwork from nowhere. We don't get a lot of Thresh these days. It hasn't been that powerful of a champion, but this is Trevor's bread and butter. This is his playmaking champion that he likes to play above all other supports, and he sees the Renata, he says, all right, give me my champion, I want to play it.
I agree, and that's kind of what I was before we had the Zac locked in. I cut myself off of saying, you know, maybe it is time to go back to something that is a little bit more basic, but that offers some of the survivability and some of really just this, the first part of this game to stall out as long as possible, try to play them away, try to get the death sentences to poke down damage, but not necessarily do full initiations, because CLG Faith is going to have to be kind of scared in the early parts of this game with the amount of damage that AOE Ginger Turmeric has under their belts right off the bat. But again, when we're looking at scaling, both of these teams are very, very adept at that.
They are. I mean, it's Aphelios, Bel'Veth up against like a GP and a Jinx and all these other type of champions. You're a little low in magic damage on the side of GT, but you kind of patchwork it. So it's an interesting game plan between the two. I feel like both junglers are going to be a little less active than normal. We might end up getting a pretty long game.
Yeah, unfortunately, we probably will, but we'll find out now as we get into game number 1. AOE Ginger Turmeric is on the blue side. CLG Faith is on the red side. It's game number 1 in this best of 3, and not a ton on the line, but bragging points and where you will be seated at going into the further stages of Proving Grounds is at least up for grabs.
Placement's the big one here. You have Ginger Turmeric, who are trying to compete for top 6. They're really close. They're right on that margin, alongside a bunch of teams that are sitting between like 95 and 110 points, something like that. It makes a world of difference whether you get 8th through 5th versus getting like 3rd, 4th versus getting, 9th through 12th, which is a possibility here if they end up getting beaten by CLG. And CLG, they've now gotten in. They're confirmed as one of our bottom 2 seeds potentially, unless they climb even higher, as TBA does beat Tempest. So that is a confirmation that DK Crew does end up getting through. I was worried for them, right? Like, just to take a quick second to talk about them, because again, they came in unexpected to make a run through even the first tournament. They've impressed us, and while it wasn't left up to their jurisdiction, the fact that Tempest lost and DK actually locks Proving Grounds is really, really cool. So we have our confirmed 10 teams for the event now from Amateur.
All 10 locked in. You got to feel really good if you are DK, even after losing in that previous series. It was less than 60 minutes total for that, a 2-0. But hey, they are still going forward with this. And we don't have to say goodbye to that team. In fact, we don't have to say goodbye to any of these teams here today, is the crazy part. More of these teams are locked in than anything.
Yeah, it's really great. This is our first look at some of the teams that are going on to take on academy teams who have been getting better and better over the course of the years, getting better and better over the course of the season. And this is where the talent pipeline starts, right? Like, this is where everything kind of originates from. This is how you find new academy players, do stars, everything like that comes right from this amateur pipeline. And so getting a chance to see some of the future players that might be in academy and LCS, maybe even on the world stage one day. This is your first look right here and now.
Yep, I love it. That's my favorite thing about Proving Grounds in general, right? Is, I mean, all of these players are in it to win it. It's not necessarily just, college players who are doing it because it's something that they love and it's an opportunity they have in school. No, these are committed players who are looking to get as far as possible and potentially go pro. And I think, I think today's series are really good depictions of that, kind of the tops and the bottoms of these ladders.
It'd be great. And now we get a chance to kind of, I guess, divulge all of our attention purely into the game here today, because obviously one of these teams is going to be leaving the tournament now. Neither of them is going to be leaving us for Proving Grounds. We're getting a chance to see them in the future. So this really does, it's a lot about bragging rights, a lot about seeding, but not much about anything else. So this is little bit more lax of a strategy, not as many stakes as you would have imagined walking necessarily into today. As we get a chance to talk about the team, I love the mid lane pick. Once again, the fact that people still get baited by this is astonishing to me, because I've never once been baited by the fact that a Gangplank gets picked for a Captain Shrimp's team and that he will pick it in the mid lane. I'm just like, yep, that's going to happen, like almost certainly. He loves this champion, loves putting it in the mid lane. Town is in a pretty rough matchup. You can see him taking the worst end of a lot of trades here, in a very rare circumstance where like the Kingslayer is a lot of healing, but the oranges also share that prospect, and it means that Captain Shrimps can kind of match in a lot of circumstances with some bonus damage on that passive to make Silas's life pretty miserable.
It's true. It's true. It is still one of Town's favorites, and one of those that CLG Faith is willing to kind of blind pick, which was the situation in this. So while they didn't necessarily know where the GP was going, I think that was the final pick that Ginger Turmeric ended up taking in that first round. So it was actually the early lock-ins of the Silas and the Gnar, kind of expecting the counter picks, right? Even though CLG Faith is on the red side. So saving the counter picks more for the bottom side of the map here. Keel already finding out a deep ward that has been placed, some really solid vision by CLG Faith, so they can kind of spend a lot of their focus not towards the jungle or not towards the top side of this map, rather towards the bottom, where we already see some pings coming out from Faith.
Yeah, you can see bottom lane right now, Belveth have actually made a play directly into bottom side, waiting for the hook potentially to come through from Trevor. You're going to get spotted on the wave right now. Nice play.
Ooh, the flash forward, the flay, but the flash away from Duo King to avoid the death sentence means that CLG Faith will not find first blood here. It is 2 flashes down, though.
And again, it's the biggest thing about having this Thresh. Actually, I'm going to hang for a second because it seems like Moose Hater's got a chance on Draco here. Conqueror's stacked, though, for Draco, so that's not fight I think you really want to take in the extended period as a Moose Hater who didn't quite have his ready to go. But again, that's the playmaking potential from Trevor. This is one of the biggest things that he was noticed for even before this split, before this season, was having the ability to playmake really heavily. Had some really nice plays himself when he was in Proving Grounds just last year as well. On this champion specifically, playing against Academy teams, he showed off some really impressive individual play. So, like I said, it's not the most popular champion, but they're willing to bring it out here just to make sure that they get the best out of their players.
Just saw some vision there as well. Keel navigating his way into the enemy jungle, taking the Raptors before making the first move here onto Dragon number 1. Is going to be a Hex Dragon. As we can see, Rose Thorn sort of waiting in the wings. Of course, both of these bottom laners from CLG Faith are on their way up. Is it too little too late, though? Has too much damage been done to this Dragon? The initiation comes through from CLG. It's a lot from Aaron on the backside. Town going in, though, taking down Keel. Duo King may be able to get out of this one. Absolutely not. It's a double kill over to Aaron to start things off for CLG Faith.
This was disastrous from AOE Ginger Turmeric because they were the first ones there. They committed really heavily to the Dragon, and they end up losing the fight, which I think was the play from CLG the entire time. They focused on the Deep Learning, who I think unnecessarily walked into the pit, and I'm not sure why. Like, he just decided to run into the pit instead of running around the backside of the fight and allow his, the people in the pit to do their work. And Duo King is just stuck in the same place. Like, he's in the pit as well. He has no flash, though. Like, there's no way to get out of the circumstance. So CLG getting the better of that just because, again, Ginger Turmeric were so blindsided or kind of focused on the Dragon take that they weren't expecting for CLG to step up that aggressively, maybe.
And definitely not the way that you want to start if you're Ginger Turmeric here down on the bottom side, which is, again, where they've been trying to focus a lot of their aggression here. Having a 2-0 start, already a bounty on the head of Aaron, and they've already been able to have quite a bit of pressure here on the bottom side. Of course, that first Dragon did end up going over to Ginger Turmeric, so they feel at least a little bit good about taking that first objective, but now they have to be very careful about this bottom side and the pressure that's able to be placed here by CLG Faith, because they might have set themselves up for some lackluster Dragon plays here going forward.
Hasn't really been the focus, especially recently, of CLG to play towards their bottom side, but with the 2-0 Aphelios might be the opening for Aaron to really show off quite a bit. Already love this as well. The fact that he got 2 kills, the fact that they're not under much threat as long as Renata doesn't hit much CC, unlocks Trevor to the rest of the map. And it's Aaron who's being entrusted with the responsibility of being a solo laner here on the bottom side of the map, just absorbing whatever it is that Duo King decides to deliver to Aaron on this Aphelios. Because again, Trevor doesn't want to be in bottom lane. He wants to be anywhere he can play make, and that he can find it in bottom lane, but he is elsewhere most of the time. So Aaron getting a little bit of that onus once again in this game.
Not just that, but when we actually take a look at the kill participation for those 2 kills, as Draco has to flash away from this one, Moose Hater almost getting the kill on that, is that it was 4 members across the map that got both assists. So the Belveth, Town, and Trevor all got 2 assists on that one. So maximum gold, maximum experience spread across the map, and that means it's going to be yet another plate that goes down here towards the bottom side. That is so much damage. Honestly, I hate playing against an Aphelios that has an early kill or two because it's so ridiculous how quickly he can stack up some of that damage. All he's got is the Noon Quiver and full boots, and it's still more than enough to be able to just wreak havoc on those plates.
The correct gun setup is often a big thing, and Aaron right there with the Crescendum taking full advantage, stepping into the tower, knowing he's got the enhanced attack seed, dropping a turret as well to make sure it's just dropping as much damage. Nearly gets a third plate off that tower before Rift Herald even spawn. Is now both teams kind of posturing towards this. You're going to see that it's Aaron and Trevor on the way up first. They're going to have 4 members to just the 3 of CLG, and Duo King only just now moving is actually going to turn back to bottom lane. I think they're going to bail on this play because they know that CLG is actually in much better position to take this. Just having to seed a little bit of the early game. As CLG capturing quite a bit of space that Ginger Turmeric, I wasn't expecting them to give up this early on into the game.
I've been talking to no one.
I guess that's the case, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a chance for them as well because they have just so much acceleration available for themselves. And both of these teams were talking really about just their ability to kind of scale as the game goes on. CLG Faith making that happen pretty early on. And so AOE Ginger Turmeric needs to find some sort of stall for this. And I do think that Captain Shrimps in the mid lane maybe is the opportunity here as he's had a lot of pressure and we haven't really seen Keel show up yet.
Yeah, Keel, again, oh, actually, whose ultimate was that? Was that? Okay, that was Town's ultimate. I'm guessing he stole the ultimate at level 6 or somewhere around level 6 and then just had to burn that because it was about to expire. So that's the reason he just dumped it so he could get a quick back. Yeah, it feels like Captain Shrimps is doing perfectly fine farming at this point in the game. He's got like 9-10 CS per minute at this point, doing pretty good. Draco actually getting some aggression into Moose Hater. Pops the ultimate just to deter Draco, and it worked. Kicked him away far enough that he wasn't able to keep auto-attacking. I really thought that Draco was going to be able to capitalize, at least knock the passive off the Zac, but it's not the case.
Yeah, not the case, and Moose Hater does have his teleport available. It actually looks like Draco maybe stopped his recall, got in a little bit too close, probably just forced Moose Hater back because I didn't see any damage actually proccing off onto him. But like I said, still has that teleport. Draco, however, almost has his off of cooldown right now, so feels okay keeping the pressure here. In the meantime, we finally see Keel show up, but is it too late? Because Rosethorn is already here on the bottom side of the map, but it's not just Keel, it's also Captain Shrimps in the wings, which means Rosethorn gets stuck between a rock and a hard place, but hey, there's a lantern right in between that he's able to grab to get out of the Super Mega Death Rocket coming out, as well as the Cannon Barrage on the backside, just trying to get Rosethorn down, but it's actually going to be Aaron who gets hit there by the hostile takeover. Trevor with a nice little death sentence to try to pull Keel under the tower, but it's just going to be a 1-for-0 in favor of Ginger Turmeric.
And a great little counterplay from Ginger Turmeric. They are ready for the bot side play. They see it coming from a little while away. The ward in the river kind of tipped them off that Rosethorn was going to show up or was actually there with the Rift Herald. Because they're going to start at a second dragon. I've seen this one before, I think, Jolly, as we're seeing Duo King and Keel. Here comes Deep Learn. Will he walk into the pit? Will he give us an exact copy of what we saw from the level 1 or the first dragon? I don't think so.
Nope. Might even give this one up. Trevor and Rosethorn. Well, Rosethorn actually kind of looking for something there onto Captain Shrimps, recognizing it's not going to happen. That means that the dragon gets a reset here, but it's still going to be the recalls and the general resets coming out of AOE Ginger Turmeric, which means this dragon still is an opportunity here for Rosethorn to capitalize on, and that will at least even things out as we go towards Dragon 3.
So on one hand, this is like solid from CLG and being able to contest the dragon to make sure they don't give up another neutral objective. It's in the mid lane. Captain Shrimps! Does he have enough?
Oh my god. He has enough. I love it. I need a soundbite of somebody needs to clip that little Rebel Fox scream for me. That was honestly, it was perfect. That's exactly what happened there. It seemed like maybe he would get away, but really had no chance. Still had flash available and the ultimate too.
Yeah, really tough. I was actually about to talk about CLG. They're like moving into the dragon might have actually cost them bottom tower for a second, but it seemed like they had enough time to pick up both. So props to them for being able to push off the dragon take and they got going themselves, and then also get bottom tower for Aaron, which is a solid set of plays that come through in exchange for basically the mid lane play. Like they opened up that Captain Shrimps wasn't going to get responded to and Town ends up dying, but that's pretty good.
Seriously, send it to me. It will be added to stream. Yes, I need it for my soundboard. Okay, I absolutely need that. It's up to somebody. We're gonna get like 100 clips sent over to production there. A nice death sentence onto Trevor. Sorry, not a death sentence. A nice pull onto Trevor, who is gonna be able to just walk away from that one, no problem. Trevor doing what Trevor does best, which is roam around the map, trying to clear out some vision and supply some of his own here for the team. Still Really even game, though. We're looking at an under 2k gold difference. It's still 2-2, so that's one aside for these Dragons, and CLG Faith really having that big buff thanks to some of the pressure that they've got in some of these lanes, but also the fact that they've already taken down a tower before plates have fallen.
Not to mention, like, Rift Herald takes, Dragon takes, all things that enhance this Bel'Veth for Rosethorn, who is this, at the moment at least, 2 assists in the game doesn't look that incredibly, like, dominating, but, like, if you talk about what Rosethorn has been in the past, having played on academy teams, GGA comes to mind in the last PG. During some of the interviews that we did with some of the players, he talks about the fact that he wants to go back to academy, and he doesn't just want to beat academy teams. He wants to show everybody that he's capable of leading a team in PG, and that's what he wants to do with the CLG squad.
Well, let's see if they can make some more work here. It looks like there's not a lot that can be done, unfortunately, by Captain Shrimp's. Keel is here. But what are the costs of it? Because so is Aaron. We've got that Hex Flash coming through. Trevor just barely missing the death sentence to try to pull Keel back into that fight. And this is just how aggressive CLG Faith is going to be able to continue to be.
It's about as close as possible. And once again, now Rosethorn's starting to step into some of the lanes, starting to make some plays happen. And that's a big thing. When the Bel'Veth starts to get involved, starts to get some additional resource inside a game like this, becomes a very terrifying thing, especially since Deep Learn isn't really not behind by any standard, but not accelerated enough to really accomplish all that much so far into the Bel'Veth. It makes it a very mean frontliner and a very mean champion to try to deal with for most of the members of this team. And it's actually went tit for tat really with Keel in the jungle. When it comes to the Udyr, you're down 2 CS. That's perfectly fine with all the amount of everything else that you've gotten between the Dragon, the Rift Herald, the kill, the 2 assists. Like Rosethorn has been running this map compared to Keel, who hasn't quite had the influence that we want yet. We'll get to that point, but we talk about Keel being one of these members that kind of waits a little while. It does scale up as the game goes on, waiting for that influence to start to rear its head.
Yeah, it's definitely not somewhere you want to be. And, as this Udyr, sure, it's a bit of a slow start, but not as slow as this, right? We're looking at 15 minutes. We've only seen Keel really make an appearance in 1 or 2 places, and it hasn't quite led to as much favor as he would have liked. We see him sitting at 0-1-1. Of course, it's Captain Shrimps that does have the advantage, at least on the side of Ginger Turmeric, has both of the kills for the team. So that's well distributed for these guys heading into the latter stages of things. But again, scaling is really heavy on both sides of the map here, and you don't want either side to snowball because this game can end a lot quicker than you might anticipate if that's the case.
Yeah, if one of these teams gets a pretty significant advantage over the other, things can spiral rather quickly just because both teams have at least enough of a team fighting team to want to warrant a team fight. And so if you get an advantage, it's going to be difficult to try to force one on the other side. So then you're basically out of luck at that point inside of this one, or at least it's going to be a lot harder to generate a fight that you are looking for. It'll open up so much space for the opposing team. As CLG, once again, just cleaning up around the map to make sure they're doing what they need to. They're helping out Rosethorn really make as much action as he can to ensure that he's picking up resources on the Bel'Veth, becoming a terrifying monster. He's going to have the Iceborne build alongside the Blade of the Rune King. Again, for being a frontliner, I think that's the right choice inside a game like this. You're not going to give a chance for Captain Shrimps and the Jinx, Deep Learn to really rip through your health bar the way you would if you were just a glass cannon.
And yeah, I mean, just speaking of that growth in general, both of the Rift Heralds have gone over to Rosethorn on Bel'Veth, which is absolutely terrifying and certainly not something that you want to be handing over to this team. That means the CLG Faith is going to be able to converge here towards the mid side relatively early on. We can see Draco making his way down. Nobody has TP on the side or on either side aside from Town for CLG, who is currently pushing in the bottom lane, so there's might be an opportunity for him to make his way into this if maybe Draco finds Mega, if somebody decides to actually make a move here. This might be the opportunity. There it is. It's the elastic slingshot coming through from Moose Hater. It's a lot of damage, but the Lantern comes through. That means that Rosethorn's going to be able to get out. The GP ultimate coming through from Captain Shrimps. Maybe CLG Faith just backing away from this one.
You have an ultimate from Renata remaining on AGT, but they're down most of their big resources, which is the reason why I feel as though CLG Faith should not leave this. They've got everything up right now. I'm waiting for Draco, who's now at maximum Narbar as well. So that means if AGT do decide to take this, they're taking it into a Mega Gnar. There's no way to stall this. Dragon's already half down. They have to decide to fight right now.
There it is. He doesn't get the double flip. Draco looking for the initiation. Out goes the hostile takeover, but there's a hostile takeover as well in response coming out of Town on the backside. You get the box. Draco taking a lot of damage, needing to flash away from this one. Rosethorn looking for the ultimate there, getting the Endless Banquet out. And it's going to be one member going down in Moose Hater, the Dragon being picked up by CLG Faith. And it looks like you were absolutely right there, Rebel Fox. A good play for CLG.
Holy, that was the most disgusting Renata ultimate I've ever seen, and it did nothing. I'm so upset about that. Duo King just hit all 5 members of the opposing team with it in the middle of the Baron pit. That's a nice grab. That's going to mean the Deep Learn has to burn the cleanse.
There it is. The cleanse was used. Rosethorn taking a lot of damage here. It's a flash forward from Trevor. Will Rosethorn go down? Yes, that's going to be enough with the cannons, thanks to Deep Learn getting the flash forward in response. So good capitalization as Trevor's going to be the next target right here. There it is. Another kill. They get aired on top of it. It's a double kill, and it's handed over to Captain Shrimps on the backside now. Town is here. He's going to use that cannon barrage all on his own. Duo King's going to end up going down. It's a double kill over to Draco, who teleports in.
Ends up just being a 2 for 2, but kills going into the right places once again, like you talked about it. After that dragon play, it looked really rough from AOE Ginger Turmeric. I felt that the catch on the Deep Learn was going to mean something, and I think CLG ended up in the same place. We'll get a chance to see a lot of what just happened, but this is the play that happened, right? It was Trevor landing a solid hook onto Deep Learn. The cleanse coming through was enough to actually prevent, but everybody committed too much. Look at that. Aaron popping forward with the onslaught, Rosethorn diving underneath the tower, just way too aggressive, trying to pick off the Jinx, and it led to AGT, feeling themselves a little bit here, making sure to run up the lane, finding additional play, the flash auto onto Trevor to get the kill for Captain Shrimps, who pulls the second one here, and then of course the TP response comes through and ends up just being a 2 for 2 in the grand scheme of things, as AGT ends up getting punished a little bit for the transgressions of chasing that far to make sure they get some kills back, feeling like they need to accomplish something after that lost dragon fight.
Deep Learn feels all right about it. Deep Learn ended up getting that 1 kill, being able to back away with the assists as well. So doesn't feel too horrible about this. And of course, like we talked about, Captain Shrimps was the one that got that double kill. So sitting at 4-1 and but you're right, CLG Faith made the best out of what could have been a really bad situation. Nice push back there from Duo King to make sure that Draco and Rosethorn cannot commit to that fight. That also meant that Captain Shrimps was able to get a little bit more damage off on this tower. That equalizes things out 1-1, and look at that gold. Barely 1,000 differential here, Rebel Fox.
There comes a time in this game where I think we need to start looking at scaling. We're 20 minutes in with a 1,000 gold gap. The Dragons are only 2-1 right now after 3, which means somebody has to be leading. And so if we're looking at this team, these teams kind of holistically, you've got Moose Hater and Keel that are on Sunfire tanks that are both going to be really difficult to kill, and it's a Gale Force Aphelios. There aren't great ways to kill. I get Belveth does have percentage health damage. Draco's got some solid damage with like hyper procs and stuff, but it feels like their primary carry is not going to have the same type of damage against the front line that the Jinx is going to have against Draco and Rosethorn here. And so there is potential for AOE Ginger Turmeric to have fights, especially with Gangplank. If you drop some big barrels, didn't go for a crit, but does have enough damage and enough gold in this game to really still feel quite influential, especially this far ahead. Could be something to consider as we go into the later stages. It's just what is CLG able to accomplish against the tank specifically. Watch the health bars of Moose Hater and Keel and see, because there might come a time where they just get too bulky for any real damage to start stacking up fast enough compared to Deep Learn and Captain Shrimps against the opposing team.
It is, of course, Aphelios, though. You do have Silas here. You do have Draco there, who's going to be able to go in and absorb quite a bit. And Rosethorn on the backside, after stacking up a couple of items, has the capacity to do it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is the scaling that we were talking about on both sides of the field, right? CLG's looking much more towards that damage end of scaling, whereas AoE Ginger Turmeric just looking to kind of take over positioning, right? And sort of juggling aggression amongst themselves and allowing Deep Learn to be able to pop off as much damage as possible, along with Captain Shrimps there on the backside. And they have the ability to do that. Again, Captain Shrimps 4-1-0, feeling pretty good. Already has that the chainsaw, already has, full boots, as well as the Trinity Force locked down, so is feeling relatively good. But again, you've got Town, who's able to pick up all of these fantastic ultimates that are available here. Rosethorn jumping into a few of them. Of course, that lantern from Trevor is always on point.
Yeah, I'm also watching, even individual dragons I think are quite influential with the amount of like tankiness you get, especially like when you're considering that Aaron, again, went for some of the crit itemization, but hasn't gone for pen. There's no board doms, there's no even lethality necessarily to cut through armor. And so that's something to consider, that like, again, these flat stats are going to be really valuable even on their own, but the soul is going to be humongous for both these teams because of how much of a massive front line that you've got. They're going to pull Trevor.
It's a lot of damage. Out goes Moose Hater to the backside. Rosethorn gets the pop-up. He's going to take the first one, and there it is. The follow-up to the hostile takeover that we were looking for. Draco, the next target. Rosethorn, will he be able to stay alive? Just barely. Yes, Town taking so much damage here from both Captain Shrimps and Deep Learn, and AoE Ginger Turmeric turn this one around.
They're going to split objective focus here. They're going to be able to grab mid tower with a bunch of the carries that are coming through, and they're going to be able to grab the dragon as well to be able to put themselves on even footing and at a gold advantage for the first time this game. And can I talk about what a masterclass of a Renata game we're getting from Duo King? The laning phase was a little disastrous. I think Trevor was able to help punish. I think a lot of the early kind of game really didn't make it look like Duo King was doing all that much. But ever since the mid game has struck, he has been he's just been incredible with this Renata. He's found multiple denials, he's found multiple picks, he's found humongous ultimates, and this is what started off the fight, was the pull onto Trevor, which made it difficult for him to really find a way to get a lantern to pull somebody out. And then this Renata ultimate, it forced Rosethorn back into the team, back into a position where they could try to punish him. He couldn't step back in. They failed Gnar afterwards. There's no way to fight back at this point. As CLG, you got 2 members into a full 5-man squad. The LVF can't be on the map for the Dragon either. It's perfect. It's a great play from Ginger Turmeric, who have really changed their fate this game.
Yeah, Ginger turned the game around. It really felt like CLG Faith was kind of running it for themselves here, and the script has really been flipped. And I was talking about the positioning, right? It's a lot of this has to do with the positioning the AOE Ginger Turmeric has moving forward, because they have to make sure that these heavy damage dealers on the side of CLG Faith are not hitting the back line. And it's been so easy for Deep Learn to just stay safe in these. Even that opportunity where Captain Shrimps, not really opportunity, but where Captain Shrimps ends up going down in one of these fights, the first time that he ended up dying, he's more than okay. It's because he's putting himself so far forward, because there's so much opportunity he's got with the amount of damage that he's dealing being so far ahead here. So now it's up to CLG Faith to try to figure out how to pinch out some of these weaker members and how to make some of these fights start in their favor.
I do like the Black Cleaver pickup from Draco. I think it does help out Aphelios quite a bit. I still would like to see some penetration from the Aphelios eventually, but at least it does help salvage, as Keel is dramatically out of position. He's just surrounded.
That is a rough one. Honestly, not even a ton to cover there. Can Aaron get the kill? No, it's going to end up going over to Draco. Moose Hater maybe waiting for an initiation here, but it's all
Probably
5 members, and there was already 1 down from Ginger Turmeric. They recognize no more Udyr. Might as well start out on this Baron. It's a nice ultimate, though, from Captain Shrimps to sort of push the members away and not actually allow them to continue the initiation either on the Baron or onto this turn in a fight.
And they have to be very careful about playing inside the Baron pit, because you've got not only Renata's ultimate, the hostile takeover, but also Moosehoder just waiting, licking his chops for multiple members to be stacked together. They're going to try to deny him immediately in the course of this fight.
Oh my gosh, it all goes back onto Moose Hater in the backside. It's 4 members that get hit by the hostile takeover. They're going to be able to take down Keel, but at the same time, Town goes down, Rosethorn goes down. It's a double kill going over to Deep Learn as Aaron falls as well. Draco now on the run, might be able to take down 1, but that is a solid opportunity. It's just a cue from Captain Shrimps. They find themselves not just the turn on the fight, but they're going to be able to take this Baron with Keel having respawned as well.
And they jump on a Moose Hater, but Moose Hater just, he's too tanky. He can absorb so much damage, and it buys time for the positioning. It buys time for Duo King to get his team right back into the place they need to be. Trevor tries to hang around just to poke the Baron for a little bit of something. He does actually blast cone over the wall, but it doesn't matter because they got the range for it. It's perfectly executed from Ginger Turmeric. They lost their jungler. Keel was way out of position, and they salvaged this play miraculously. And again, Moose Hater gets picked. They thought that they had him, but look how long it takes him to die, because this is the first life when he just presses his ultimate, and he's only half health now. Like, he's able to hit everybody with the ultimate. The Renata ultimate goes out before anything else. And now it's like, how much time does it buy for Deep Learner, for Captain Shrimps to put in damage to this team? It's incredible just how much they got done with their 4 members. And that's why CLG had to be super careful walking into that choke point. It's given so much now. Tons of gold, Baron buff advantage. Next Dragon almost certainly going to be going to the way of Ginger Turmeric. The game is completely changed from what we saw in the opening minutes.
It's true. I said CLG Faith needs to try to find picks. Zach's not the pick, guys. Zach is never the pick, especially when his passive is up. They popped his passive. They didn't even get the kill on him. It all feels like it was for Gnar, right? I mean, that play was just kind of fraught with disaster in terms of being on CLG Faith's side. Now let's see if Rosethorn can do something. He gets caught in the middle of all of these members. Now it's Town who might be the target of focus here for AOE Ginger Turmeric. It's Rosethorn back on the run. Should be able to get out of this one alive, but it's so much pressure coming from AOE now at this point. They have to deal with this Baron push in the mid.
They do. You're seeing, like I said, I think it's the perfect setup that Ginger Turmeric really wanted walking into the situation with the Baron buff. Because, you know, you push up mid lane, you got Shrimps there. He's unlikely to get picked. Not impossible to get picked, but unlikely to get picked. He's got oranges, he's got wave clear, he's got everything he could want. And they're shifting everyone else into bottom lane just to push the tower. But even if they don't get it, again, third Dragon is enough. It's sufficient. Because it means a 5-minute timer is then put on a CLG Faith, and they say you have to be ready to fight us in 5 minutes or you lose Mountain Soul. and they have consistent damage, but probably not enough damage at that point in the game to win any fight at all with that amount of flat stats that's going to be thrust into the team. And so CLG Faith are put not necessarily on a timer, but they're going to have to come up with solutions to problems that are going to be really, really difficult to find one for. Ooh. Goodness. Oh my goodness. That's absolutely insane. You can see they're kind of split across the map. You've got the bottom lane, you've got multiple cannons kind of bearing down on the bottom tower with Baron buff, and in the Dragon Pit, it's just Moosehater who's soloing it. That's perfectly acceptable. They're pushing in multiple places, they're getting everything that they need to, they're finding advantages on the map. Ginger Turmeric, this is a surprisingly resilient game from them. We often think about them as a team that is really, really momentum-based when it comes to winning or losing and continuing that trend over the course of the series, but even during a game. Here, they actually did well kind of coming back from it.
Yep, they did incredibly well. And, that's really, really the struggle for them right now, for CLG Faith at least, in terms of their late game that they were looking at, in terms of this scaling, right? They're looking at Aaron, they're looking at Town, right? They're looking at Rosethorn a bit, and all these members have been shut down pretty hard. Now, on the opposite side, when we're talking about the scaling that they're really looking forward to in terms of that damage scaling, Captain Shrimps, right? And Deep Learn, 6-1 and 2, 5-0 and 5 respectively for these players. And we've seen just how much these autos, how much these cannons are doing out of Deep Learn, and that's with pretty much all of these Super Mega Death Rockets actually missing just because of the anticipation that comes through from those members of CLG Faith. So it's starting to get more and more difficult for CLG, especially now with this gold gap really increasing.
Like I said, it's a position where it felt like there was quite a bit that itemization held in this game, where like Black Cleaver was needed to burn some armor off for some of the front line, but it means that there's not that much armor on Draco. And like you said, the rockets pouring on him earlier is he's one of the frontliners, and makes it so difficult to be confident in the ability to stand in front of this team, to be able to soak damage like you might need to as the Gnar, even as Rosethorn, who's getting closer and closer to what looks like a Randuin's. But again, it might be too little too late to really get to that. It should be Infinity Edge next item for the Jinx, and that's just going to be a ridiculous amount of damage, and that's ignoring the fact that we still have Captain Shrimps in this game, who's got a ridiculous amount of pen built into his kit in the barrels as well as in his itemization, and it means that he's shredding a lot of the members on this team, even the frontliners.
There we go. Keel going in towards the backside. Out comes the hostile takeover. It's going to take down 2 members on top of it. The cannon barrage goes through. The box is not going to be enough to keep Trevor alive, nor is it going to be enough to keep Deep Learning off the backside of this fight. Draco, the next target, he gets into Mega Gnar. He might be able to ult a couple of them in. No, he's going to use his E, and it's going to be these members of CLG Faith stuck underneath their own tower, but it's okay because Ginger Turmeric has plenty of aggro that they can pull, going over to Moosehater, going over to Keel, even going over to Captain Shrimps, which means the base has been broken into, and this could spell the end of the game right here, right now for CLG Faith.
I think the game is pretty much just over at this point. If a Town would have to make a miracle of a save, but it's just not going to happen. Instead, Ginger Turmeric make a decent comeback. They were only down about 2,000-3,000 gold, but it felt like they were in dire straits. But it really was just that opening play of the game that cost them that. And CLG just never really had the wherewithal to continue their game.
And it was beautifully done by Ginger Turmeric. It did really feel like we were kind of at that point where we're like, all right, feels like CLG is kind of running away with it, right? They were able to get that first double kill really early on for the Aphelios. They were able to kind of progress some of that early scaling. They were able to get both of the Rift Heralds picked up, and then things really fell apart around that Baron fight, right? Where Ginger Turmeric was like, all right, okay, let's see how far you guys think you can actually get with this, and let's throw our tanks in, and you expend everything onto that Zac and expect to maybe come out ahead when there's all of this damage that's backing and supporting the rest of Ginger Turmeric there. So it was really well played. I love the Zac lock in as the final pick. I am a big proprietor of Zac in the top lane. That used to be one of my specialties when I actually played rank way back in the day. And so it is exciting to see, that Ginger Turmeric definitely has the adaptability, right? The flexibility that we know them to have, but it's still too much. It kind of goes over the head of CLG Faith. While they were trying to get some of these counter picks, it wasn't exactly where they needed them to go.
The fact that they were that tenacious too was really awesome. I think it's an avenue that, again, we don't usually attribute to the side of Ginger Turmeric, but that was a good game where, again, they were working at a deficit. They were working against the team that was actually making some aggressive plays against them to kick off the game, and they were able to find avenues back in, and I think that's really astonishing. I think that's a very different look for a team that's competing not just to be, in my opinion, a top 10 team, not even just competing to be a top 6 team in name, but they're competing to be a top team inside of amateur and even inside of academy in a lot of ways. Yep. very, very heavily. They've got the talent for it. We've seen them have the talent for it before, and it wouldn't astonish me if they're able to continue to build on this as they go through the tournament, because this team also took an early entrant or exit from playoffs in the last tournament to their sister team in AOE, and they're hoping not to have to run that back. Hopefully they get out and they're able to make it further. But of course, we have game 2, we have game 3, CLG. They're still trying to make their ability, their run happen right now as well.
Yeah, and again, both of these teams are locked in right now. So, there was the opportunity for a lot to be on the line. Right now, it is, again, just that seeding, which CLG is already kind of behind in automatically. But you know what? We'll have to see, because there was a claim that was made by the desk, I will let you all know, that whoever takes game number 1 is going to close it out in a 2-0. So let's toss it back over to the desk. Speaking of those guys, toss it back over to Ravish. And I'm not going to use the word comrades anymore, because apparently I got flamed for it last time. But we'll have to see if they still feel that way and if they are still pretty committed with their previous decisions. So let's hear from the desk right now.